everyone. Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. And on the show today, we have Mariela Dubbah. Mariela is an author of multiple books, many of which are bestsellers. She's a speaker and a corporate consultant. So I am super excited. I think we're kindred spirits. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. But welcome, Mariela.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here today.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Hey, listen, the very first question that I usually start off with is, people want to know a little bit more about you. So why don't you let us know a little bit about your background and kind of what got you to where you are today?
Well, I have a master's in philosophy and literature from the University of Buenos Aires, where I'm from. I'm from Argentina. And I've been in the United States since, I would say, for about 25 years. And so I've had a very long already relationship with the U.S. I live in New York. And when I first came, I started working in a company that distributed books to the school system very, very quickly, like within the first 2-3 years. My husband at the time and I decided that we were going to buy the company because it was about to close anyway. And so we bought it in installments, and I started working 20 hours a day trying to make this company survive. And so we were in the education space for a long time. And a few years later, I got divorced. And so I sold my part in that company, and I decided to focus my energy in writing, which is something that I do since I'm 9 years old. And so I launched my writing career, my speaking career, my consulting career, like in succession right after that.
Wow, that's let me ask you this. So you were working at a company, and then you decided, I think your father was a surgeon, correct? So I mean, you're in education, but were any of your family entrepreneurs? Like, what gave you the idea, you and your husband at the time, to say, hey, let's buy this company? I mean, that's a pretty big step.
It is. I think that it was circumstantial, because we were in a position in our lives where I had come to the U.S. with my my tourist visa, and then when I got this job offer, they transferred me to a work visa. And when I went a year later to Argentina for a visit, and I went to just stamp that work visa on my passport, the chief of the visa department decided, you know what, we're not going to allow you back in the U.S. because you change your status. It means you might want to stay in the U.S. to live. So we're not going to allow you back. And they canceled my visa after a year of living in the U.S. So I was out for a week on vacation, and I left my house, my car, everything here. So they were not letting me come back. So we had to come back any way we could. We had to do it through the border. So I had to come across the border like a lot of people. And so we were undocumented. So I was working at this company, which was about to close, and I didn't have a lot of other options. So forced by that situation, it was, it's a great opportunity to buy this company. The owner was also from Argentina. He was allowing us to pay it in installments. We paid $1,000 a month. And we worked our butts off to cover that, 20-some years ago. And so in the end, I did get my green card in a lottery, and then I became a citizen. But right at that point, it was like, either you do this or it's going to be very hard going forward.
Wow.
So no, there are no entrepreneurs in my family. They're all professionals.
I love that story, and I love your honesty, because some people probably wouldn't tell that part, but it shows your character. So to me, it says, okay, my back is against the wall. I'm going to make something happen, which kind of describes everything that you've done since then. It sounds like those were stepping stones to get you to where you are today.
They are. And you know what? They do mark your character, because that's a very scary experience. I can tell it now because there's been a lot of years in between, but I was in my early 20s. I had no need actually to come in the States in that way. I come from a well-to-do family in Argentina who could not believe that I would just run across the border. They actually wanted to kill me before I could get killed crossing the border. And but it was the determination and the fact that I wanted to live in this country. So it really creates kind of a base for what are you afraid of after that experience. You're kind of fearless. So every obstacle that I face, that I continue to face along the road, I always say to myself, look, I crossed the border. How much worse can it be?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, and I was lucky. That was not I didn't get mugged. I didn't get raped in the border. A lot of people have it much worse, right? But it's an experience that really marks you, and it's a before and an after.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. So you ended up having to sell your part of the business. I don't know whether that was I ended up having to sell a business a couple of years ago as well, not by choice. So how was that process for you? Because for me, it was terrible. But I mean, I'm better because of it. So how was that for you?
It was horrible. Mostly because, I was young. I was married to my partner, and now I was getting divorced. I was going to lose my business. I was going to lose my house. I was going to lose everything. And I had no family here, or my family is in Argentina. So the family pool, why don't you come back? Now you have nothing. You don't have a husband anymore. You're not going to have a business anymore. There's no need for you to stay. So that pool, which at that point you really need a lot of emotional support. If you're going to be determined, you're going to stay here, you're by yourself, you're going to be opening a whole new horizon for yourself. It was really, really hard. And, the two things came together. The fact that I was getting divorced, and I actually ended up leaving my house because my husband wouldn't leave. So I went and I lived somewhere else for several months until we could figure it out and find somebody, because what we did is I found a partner who could buy my part and stay with my ex-husband and continue with the business, which is what we did. So in the end, we settled. I kept the house, he kept the business. But what I'm saying is that it was a really difficult situation. And I had also, that was my baby too. I had grown that business too. But I was ready. I understood that for him, the entrepreneurial part was more important. And it would give me a completely new opportunity to pursue what I wanted, which was writing. Because I always tell people the fact that you're good at something doesn't mean that that's what you want to be doing. So the fact that I was good on sales and getting people excited and selling our programs didn't mean that I was happy doing that.
I love that. Again, I'm going to talk about character again, but some people say I can't do that because it's too hard. Or, somebody, so-and-so did that, but it's easy for them because they had a wealthy family. Well, like you just demonstrated, your back has been up against the wall several times and you've recreated yourself and you've made something. It's not a failure. It's a stepping stone. And you continue to take those difficult times and turn them into something positive. And I think so many people can learn from that.
Well, Sheila, there's something that's very important of what you just said. I'm going to pick on that. My new book is called Find Your Inner Red Shoes, Step into Your Own Style of Success. That book was first published in Spanish. And in Spanish, the word success has the same root, it's éxito, has the same root as the word exit in English, salida, the door that you open. So it's very easy to understand that in Spanish, your success is your exit, whatever that exit is for you. And the book in English starts with an explanation that failure is actually needed. It's a requirement for you to find success, because failure means to break away. And to break away with what? With whatever came before. So the first failure we're usually afraid of is the break away from being different from what others expected us to be. And those are our parents. So that initial fear is the fear of being different from our families, from what our families expect from us, from all those mandates and some subconscious messages we've received. So without failure, which is the break away from that fear, from that initial predetermination everybody has for you, you cannot succeed. You cannot find your place, your own way, your own pathway, your own journey. So to me, each one of these failures is actually the breaking point where you really start something new. So then you start thinking about failure as a new beginning. It's not a negative anymore. We need failure to move ahead.
I agree. And it took me a long time to figure that out, but I agree with you 100%. When I've been put in a situation that I thought everything was just terrible, I can't believe this is happening to me, I've become better because of it. I got through it. It took a little bit to get through it, but I got through it and I'm better because of it. Let me ask you this. So you sold your business. You decided you were going to get back into writing, and I think I read that you started writing when you were around 9 years old, so that was kind of your core. But then how did you take that and develop a business from that? I mean, some people would go, okay, I just have to go back to work somewhere or start another bit. You sort of did that, but what got you on that path? Like, what made you think I can now turn this into a business?
Again, it took some time and it took some doing. I write fiction since I'm 9 years old. What I broke in this market is with nonfiction. So what happens is that I lost my, I sold my business and I have no job. I started working for some time with a friend of mine, and then her business went kaput. So I was left without a job. I had my mortgage, and I was just like, very sad. And a friend of mine said to me, you need to go do something. You can't continue to expect that something major is going to happen. You're going to need to go to the flower shop and offer yourself as a salesperson at the flower shop. And I'm like, I can't do that. I cannot do that. It's like I had this complete, stereotype that I couldn't go sell anything behind a counter. So she said, so what can you do? Can't you go teach Spanish? And I'm like, that I could do. So for many years, I taught Spanish in corporations, and I developed interpreter programs for healthcare centers that they were using any Spanish speaker as an interpreter, and the people were even illiterate in Spanish. So imagine putting somebody in between your doctor and the patient, trying to explain things where they didn't even speak correct Spanish. So I developed all these programs, and I worked with corporations while I was working with an editor to help me write in English as well as I write in Spanish, because English obviously is my second language. In case you didn't notice, my accent is not from Westchester, New York. So I developed my skills in English. So just as I can speak English at the same speed in which I speak Spanish, and that allows me to translate my personality in both languages almost equally, I wanted to do the same with my writing. So it took me a while so that I could master the writing. And then in 2004, probably, I went every year to Book Expo, which is the largest, exhibition for the trade, for book trade. And I always went there with my company. But now I'm going there as a writer, looking for a house, right, for a publisher. I don't even know what I'm going to write yet, but, I think I have a novel in my hands. So I attended one of these workshops, and all of the Spanish people who are publishing in Spanish were there. And I asked a question, about what were you going to do in terms of, there's a need for books on how to get a job for people who are not from here. They don't have a clue how the job process works, whatever. Just an innocent question, really. And 2 or 3 of the publishers came after me right after the workshop asking me if I wanted to write that book. So I got that contract. In 2 weeks, I had a contract. And that was my first book, How to Get a Job in the U.S., a guide for Latinos. So I immediately started feeling out a need. There wasn't anything at the time that helped with that niche, with that need. And in like 15 minutes, because I was the only writer who could do media in Spanish for my publisher, I was the only one. I developed a whole network in the media because I had to self-promote, right? So then I started saying, okay, now I need to do workshops based on this. And that's how it went. Every book I wrote, I developed a workshop that went with the book. And I started becoming a speaker on those issues. In the beginning, it was all about education, because my first few books have to do with the education system, which is where I used to work with my company. And then little by little, they moved into professional development and now into women empowerment.
I love it. Mariela, did you have a mentor? Did you have someone? I know your friend said, hey, get off your hind end and go do something with yourself. But did you have someone that helped you like professionally as a mentor?
I think I find mentors along the way. I am very good at tapping into the people in my network whatever I need. So I do have almost like a board of advisors more than mentors. So when I started in the publishing world, and I started doing a lot of media contributions and so forth, I would get an advisor / mentor who would work with me in media production. I would have somebody who would be my image advisor, my career advisor, each one of the needs that I had. My editor, my agent. So you start kind of adding all these different people as your career progresses, and things change. You don't keep the same mentors along the way.
Sure. I love that. I think, I'm kind of the same way. I've always looked to different people for different things. And I think that helps. Like you said, it's very helpful. I mentioned when we first started that I think we're kindred spirits. I really think we are now because of the story you just told me about your company. But, you have a desire to help women help each other. And that's with your new movement. So let's talk I started this show because I think there are a lot of women out there that are doing amazing things, and for some reason we don't see their stories as much as we see the stories of men. So my goal was, we've got to share these stories. We have to show other women that there are women out there doing amazing things just like you are. What made you decide to do what you're doing now? How'd you get into that?
Well, like I said, the new book, which I'm going to show you the cover, this is the new book. It's Find Your Inner Red Shoes, and you see that they have stilettos. And this is the book in Spanish, which is the same cover. So when the book came out, I decided I wanted to have an icon on the cover that was very powerful, that women could immediately identify as, okay, this to me says power with femininity. It's not power imitating somebody else. And so I was talking to that issue that we need to find our own success, following our own desires and what gives you the most satisfaction instead of somebody else's. And so I put those shoes on the cover, and it immediately said, I can't just have a book and workshops and book clubs. I need a movement. And one of the topics that keeps on coming back is that women don't support each other. So I wanted to kind of take away that narrative that's the reason why there are no more women at the executive level, because we're not supporting each other. Because the truth is, there are not enough women executives to be closing the doors on the others. That's not the reason why there are not enough. Agree. Because there's this gap. So if we take away that and we take it to a positive side and we say, no, the truth is women are supporting each other and we're opening the doors for each other. So we have, that's the bottom, the goal of the movement is to increase the female representation at executive levels. We have a visual cue. We do Red Shoe Tuesdays. So we invite every woman to wear red shoes on Tuesdays to go to work, so that they keep up the conversation about opportunities for women in the workplace. Instead of doing this conversation once a year for International Women's Day, we do it every week. So now we're at the point where this is happening throughout the country, throughout the world, that I have people who come up to me and said, you know what, I was wearing my red shoes last Wednesday. Somebody came up to me and said, today's not Tuesday. And I'm like, oh my God, now we own Tuesdays. It's like, or penalized if you wear red shoes another day. So it's just expanded. I think that it's at the crossroads of empowerment and fashion. And every woman who hears about it feels that you can own the movement. You can do something right away to, improve your career and improve somebody else's career.
Yeah, I love that. And I have found that, I hear that a lot, but I found that women are overly helpful. I have had, especially since starting this show, people are so willing to help, share their stories, give advice to other women. And I think it's a myth out there that they're not, and we really are willing to help.
I think, what it is, Sheila, I think that there are some women who don't help women, but there are also men who don't help men.
Exactly.
And there are men who don't help women. But I don't know why there's this pervasive notion that, but women are really bad with other women. Well, you know what? It happens. There are women who are bad with men. So the idea that that's the only conversation piece we're going to keep instead of looking at the bigger picture, I agree with you. With the Red Shoe movement, we've found so many people willing to help us, to provide venues to do the events, to talk to their own companies to find sponsors for the event. I mean, we found so many different supportive women like yourself who are saying, come to my show, let me feature you, let me show the world what you're doing.
Yes, I agree. Let me ask you this. So to have books in both English and Spanish, that's probably challenging enough. Then to have the workshop, that's challenging enough. Then to throw a movement on top of things, I'm a bit of a kind of a systems and process nut. Tell me, how do you get work done? How do you stay organized? How do you stay productive and on task?
That's $1 million question. It's really hard. I think the biggest key is to have a team that's as passionate as you are and not have too much of your ego riding on all of these initiatives. So I immediately wanted to remove myself from being at the center of the Red Shoe movement because I don't want to have to be at every event. The only way to scale it up is that other people can do it. And as a matter of fact, we launched our official Red Shoe movement event in New York City at the New York Times, and I wasn't the keynote speaker. We don't have keynote speakers at our events. The protagonist is the attendee. So we've structured the event with a methodology that we call two-way empowerment methodology. And that allows for us to scale up the events and also to do we do internal professional development in corporations. And it allows us to do it with people that we train, but that it's not me. So if somebody wants me, yes, they'll pay a premium and I'll come, I'll show up, obviously. And I also am continue to be a speaker. But I think that that's the key, to take yourself out of the center. Many times as an entrepreneur, you feel this is my baby. I need to be there all the time. I cannot pass on the baton to anybody. And that kind of limits you. And I think that's one of the things that I learned that I need to do differently.
I love that. Let me ask you this. If we had someone out there that was or maybe we're speaking to our younger selves, and somebody that's trying to decide how they want to move forward with their lives, maybe they think they have an idea, but they're not really sure. What advice would you give that young lady?
Join the Red Shoe movement so that we can find somebody that is aligned with what you're trying to find out. So if you don't join the Red Shoe movement, or if you do and you still want to do something else, I think that it's important to find within your network somebody that you could sit with and brainstorm and bounce off some ideas from. Some people think that, you need to have a mentor, and the way you're going to get a mentor is asking you, hey, Sheila, can you be my mentor? And you just met me. You have no clue who I am. I don't bring any value to you yet because you don't know who I am. And that person, it's an awkward request, right? Whenever somebody who you don't know comes up and says, I want you to be my mentor, I'm like, okay, not sure.
I don't know you.
Don't know you, and I'm not sure I want to invest my time in you, right? So I think it's better to start looking in your network and ask for recommendations to someone, from your friends, your colleagues, people who know you and trust you. Look, I'm going to introduce you and do a warm introduction. I'm going to introduce you to XYZ. And then you'll talk to that person and you get a feel. You see if there's some chemistry. And you don't need to ask for an official mentorship relationship. You can get a lot of advice without having that official, somebody playing that official role with you. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting because I'm sure it happened to you too. A lot of people that you've been mentoring over the years, and sometimes somebody asks them, so did you have a mentor? And they'll say no. And you're like, hello? What have I been doing with you all
Yeah,
this?
what about me?
Exactly. So it goes both ways. Sometimes you've been a mentor and it's informal and people don't recognize that you're a mentor. And sometimes people come and officially ask you for it. And you're like, well, I don't want to have the official title.
I love that. Hey, listen, if someone wanted to connect with you, where would you want to send them?
They can connect with me through the Red Shoe Movement on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. They can connect through my Facebook page, Mariela Dubbah, and that's Dabbah, Mariela with just one L, Mariela Dubbah. And they can always send me emails at mariela@redshoemovement.com.
Mariela, I love what you're doing. I love your story, and which is another reason why I was so pleased that you agreed to be on the show. I think what you're doing is important. I think if we change the life of one person, we've made a difference today. So I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you inviting me. I really would love to, reach out to any of your audience who is interested in talking to us more. And I love what you do. And I watch several of your podcasts and I love them. So thank you so much for featuring women.
Thank you. And I will link everything up in the show notes, and check out the movement if you haven't, guys. I'll link everything up. The world needs you, so don't underestimate your greatness. If you liked today's episode, you can spread the word by using the share buttons on the side. And if you want to learn how to simplify your life and your business, join the community and get our free updates directly to your inbox.